And we are live. We are at a live watch party. Welcome in, everyone. I am joined today with a very special guest. You know her in the chat, on Twitter, on everything as Brihana25. Brihana, you there?
I am here.
All right. So we're here today to discuss a little bit about Daniel LaRusso. Maybe one of the heroes of our story, or is he the anti-hero? I don't know. We'll have to find out. But before we get into that, Brihana, thank you for coming back to the channel. This is your second time back. Let them know who you are real quick and where you're from.
I am Brihana25. I am from just the fandom in general, I guess, on this little podcast called Cobra Kai Companion. I make music videos on YouTube and I make posters sometimes. So that's me.
There you go. There you go. But more than that, you are, perhaps more than anyone, a lifelong Daniel LaRusso fan, I would say. That's correct, yeah?
Well, yeah, pretty well, like 36 years and counting. So
okay, not the whole life, right? Just the past 36 years.
the first 11 years I was unaware that Daniel LaRusso existed.
There you go.
But yep.
But you know, Cobra Kai is a show that obviously, you know, took Karate Kid, expanded it, delved into sort of gray areas, who's the bully, whatever. And I know, like,
the first 11 years, I was unaware that Daniel LaRusso existed. There you go. Oops. Yeah. Sorry.
Is that from your end?
There we go. That was me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was checking the video on my phone because the video is not running. It's just the thumbnail showing still.
It is the thumbnail. That's what I have up.
Okay.
Here.
All right.
I'm going to switch it. There.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
There you go. It should switch on you in a second.
Okay. Crystal just pointed out in the chat that we all write fan fiction. I do that too. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, fan fiction.
Yes.
So wait, where were we? Okay, you said especially when season 1 came out, I know you had said it's hard to be a Daniel LaRusso fan. Definitely season 1 maybe dived into sort of Daniel doing some of the things we don't like or so. How would you summarize season 1 in terms of Daniel?
Well, for the first 5 episodes, Daniel was a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first half of season 5 or episode 5, Daniel was quite possibly the biggest douchebag on the show.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that an asshole or a douchebag? You know, in this show we deal with assholes, just to be clear.
Okay, so yeah, he was both a dick and an asshole, I would have to say.
Wow.
But
okay.
not a pussy.
Okay, yeah.
Because he struck first multiple times.
Right. So he was channeling Cobra Kai. Okay. We got you.
He was a little bit, maybe picked up some pointers from Johnny here and there. But the back half of season 1 was the Daniel that is Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment he put the Tenengui on, he became himself again.
There you
and
go.
The reason it was hard to be a Daniel fan wasn't necessarily because of how he was behaving. On the Cobra Kai Companion YouTube, I did a video about Daniel and talking about Daniel, and he's got a temper. He's got a big mouth. Mm-hmm. He's a hothead. So his behavior in season 1 wasn't out of character, but the Justice for Johnny thing kind of took over, and people who had always been Daniel fans ceased to be. So I was kind of out in the wilderness by myself.
It was, you know, being the Johnny
Everybody
fan was cool, you know, like
yes.
Everyone got on that Daniel's the real bully bandwagon.
Yes, because no one could look at it and appreciate that it was satire, and they all took it at face value and thought, oh my God, he's really, you know, the bad guy, but obviously he's not.
Mm-hmm. Right, part of the reason, like, I didn't pick for the topic of this debate, like, I didn't want to do Daniel as the real bully. Partially, I think it's a little bit overdone to death. I said, I thought maybe let's talk about something a little bit more specific. I thought we could do Daniel is responsible for getting the rent raised on, the people in the receipt of flats, the hard-working businessmen, but that would be a little unfair to you because, of course, he is.
Right, because that's undeniable. That was 100% Daniel. Yeah, right. I couldn't defend that. I mean, there are some things he's done that you can't defend. You can't walk it back. He really did that because he was being a dick and an asshole at the same time.
Right. He was totally focused on stopping Cobra Kai, which is what his focus is. So I did pick as the topic of the debate, as you saw in the thumbnail, everyone. I thought, well, what would be something we could actually debate? How about Daniel is responsible, or if not is responsible, Daniel is most responsible. The share can go around, but Daniel is definitely responsible for the Miguel's injury. That's what I picked. That struck you. Yeah, you immediately said, "Yeah, we can debate that." So I think there's a couple sides to that. So as I wrote down, and I was thinking about it, the first thing I did want to say, like, I'm saying Daniel is responsible. He's mostly responsible. He's not the only one responsible. I wouldn't assert that. In the end, Robby is the one that kicked him. Robby has a role in that. So I'm not going to, take away what Robby did.
Very big one.
Yeah, I obviously, physics plays a part, and the physics of Robby's kick came from him. So obviously that's a big part. Right. Robby plays a part of it. Johnny is also responsible for teaching Miguel that nonsense about mercy. Had Miguel followed Sensei Kreese's teaching.
He's responsible because he taught Miguel to be a decent person. Yes.
Yes, but sometimes being a decent person ends you up in the hospital. So definitely there's some responsibility for Johnny there.
Right.
Had Miguel followed Sensei Kreese's teachings, he probably wouldn't be in the hospital. But
no, Robby would be.
Could be. Yeah, definitely. So where are we at? So we're, but I do think Daniel plays a role in there, and a very important role, in Robby. So, and I also wanted to note one thing, Brihana. I noted you, as we were just talking, you're being a lifelong Daniel fan. You're very consistent. One thing you are very consistent with Daniel. You're very consistent in defending Daniel. Something I suspect, and we will see as this progresses, you're very consistent in defending Daniel. I think we'll see if that can lead to inconsistency on other issues. So as you're consistent in defending Daniel, maybe you'll be inconsistent on some other things. We'll see, right?
I never have been. So I encourage you to try, but I've never done it before. So we'll see.
Okay, there we go. Never done it before, and I'm the one.
Yeah, I mean, facts are facts. You can't change them. Facts are not inconsistent. They just are what they are.
Okay, so and just as we're going through this, there's definitely like a lot of formal rules of debate. Like high school debate, I talk 5 minutes, Brihana talks 5 minutes, I 3-minute rebut, she 3 minutes rebuts. But this isn't a high school debate. This is real life. There are no rules. So
there we go. Yep, absolutely.
And there are only winners and losers. It's not about scoring points. So
ooh, well, we've got how many judges here?
I see
97. We've got 97 judges who can decide which one of us wins. Mm-hmm.
So part of the reason I would put blame on Daniel for Robby's actions when Robby kicked him is I don't think, Robby got to that point by himself. And I mean that not just like in the high school or something. I'm not addressing that issue. What I'm talking about is ultimately like his motivation, what Robby was thinking, what Robby was feeling at that moment. Robby was in a lot of rage, his kick and everything. So I'm talking about motivations, and I think Robby's motivations originated with Daniel. And something we should know about the show, just as we're talking about motivations, is, the characters, it's not always spoken in dialogue, right? That's sort of a hallmark of good writing, is characters don't outright say everything they're feeling and why they're doing what they're doing. Would you agree with that, Brihana?
Right.
Yeah. So,
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
That's what good writing is. But of course, since the characters aren't outright overtly saying things, it can lead to disagreements, right? In interpretation from fans. So that's how we can get maybe here, right? Would you agree with that, Brihana?
Yeah, because I mean, subtext is subtext. It's facial expressions, it's gestures, it's did Daniel actually have to say, I want you to punch me right now, Johnny? No, because you saw it on Ralph's face, you heard it in his voice, you saw it in his eyes. He didn't have to say it, but there's different interpretations of exactly where Daniel's head was at that particular moment. Did he want Johnny to hit him? Did he know he wasn't going to? Was he taunting him? Was he trying to start a fight?
Absolutely.
There's all different kind of interpretations
the
on that.
From that.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So we can apply that to all the characters in the show then, that philosophy.
Absolutely. Because the writers have grayified everyone, and it's wonderful.
But we also know the dialogue we do have does reveal the characters, right? Their thinkings, that this is the dialogue we do have. And we also know we obviously don't see everything. We get obviously an abbreviated version of their life in that cruel summer. But we can take maybe things they say to one character can reveal the attitude of a character that maybe someone else picked up on, even if that dialogue wasn't spoken to that character. Did you follow what I just said?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, so if Daniel's saying something to someone, we see his attitude. It's possible other characters picked up on that attitude, even if we never had a specific scene of him saying that same thing to someone else. If that's just attitude.
Yeah, and the other characters are going to have the same reaction to Daniel's words and facial expressions and gestures that the audience does. They're going to interpret them differently depending on where their head is at the time. Because there's a whole argument there. What did Johnny see? Why did Johnny step away? Did he know how? And my personal opinion, he knew that Daniel could not be the bigger man at that moment, and he had to be. He stepped back because he knew that Daniel wanted him to hit him. So that's why
that
he
was
didn't.
Something also Carmen, in your example here, Carmen had said to him earlier in that episode, sometimes you have to be the bigger man, and he, that obviously influenced Johnny.
Right.
Anyway, moving on, we also know the role of sensei is important, especially as a mentor. The lessons and attitudes can be imparted onto the student, whether those are good or bad. We've seen that it could be in Kreese or Daniel LaRusso. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's as much what you live as what you say. Teaching is not just, getting up and giving lectures. It's actually living the lessons that you want them to learn and letting them see you do it.
Mm-hmm. So, and we know Daniel from the Karate Kid movies has had a lot of issues with Cobra Kai. He's been very, he went through a lot in those issues. So he has obviously a lot of negative feelings towards Cobra Kai from his own life.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Daniel has PTSD like a mofo because of Cobra Kai. I mean, there's no arguing that's not true either. So it absolutely is.
And definitely, as he has this attitude, this just general feeling of Cobra Kai, Daniel has transferred some of those issues specifically onto Miguel. Do you feel that?
No, I don't. I mean, because the first time he saw Miguel, he warned him to stay out. He warned him that he was going to turn into Johnny if he stayed. I think he judges Miguel on his own merits. I think Miguel, to him, is the boy who punched his daughter in the face, accident or not. I think that,
about that specific point, I still don't know if Sam told them about that. I don't. I mean, for me, I don't know about that specific point. But do you think she did? Because I was always unsure.
I think she did.
I always thought maybe she didn't tell them.
I think that she told, at the very least, she told Amanda, because Amanda, being a woman, could relate a little bit better to, being punched in the face by your boyfriend. And everybody acknowledges that it was an accident, but it still happened. And Daniel's exposure to Miguel has been very limited, and every exposure he has had to him has been bad. He saw Miguel's behavior at the tournament. It was not good. No one can argue that Miguel was, behaving properly at the tournament, going after Robby the way he did.
How did he go after Robby?
Yanking on his shoulder when it was already injured, pounding on an injury. And he's going to put himself in Robby's position there. And remember Johnny doing that to his knee. I don't think he's so much transferred his issues with Cobra Kai to Miguel. It's just that every time he has seen Miguel's behavior has not been the best.
Would you call it like a confirmation bias? Like he sees Miguel, he kind of kicks at Robby's injury. I'm talking about the last point there, which opened Robby up, and then he goes for the win. In the editing in that, you see like Daniel and Johnny both, do you think that's partially like confirmation bias for Daniel? Like
that Miguel became everything he tried to warn him he would be. Yes. Because he did try to warn him standing in the dojo the first time he met him.
Right.
And Daniel knows Cobra Kai inside and out. He's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Cobra Kai, right? He has been light side and dark side, both. And he's the only one who has. So he understands it better than anyone. But what it can do.
In the end, Miguel's kick there in the final point, it wasn't illegal. It was a totally legal
not at
move.
All.
So, I mean,
yes.
What's wrong? And this is getting a little bit off topic. I addressed it a little bit way back when I made the No Mercy video, but like, it's a legal move. So, Daniel says he fought without honor, or Robby fought honorably. He didn't, right? In point-based sparring, and this is just from my own experience, like there's nothing, there's the rules and there's against the rules. If it's a legal move, whatever, Robby was fighting with an injury, but was his own choice, right? I mean, he wanted to keep
absolutely
going.
Just like it was Daniel's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because Daniel says, you fought with honor, he didn't. So it's definitely implying, and he said that directly to Robby, that Robby or Miguel is a guy without honor.
Yeah. And that's not just karate, maybe perhaps more in karate than in other sports, because martial arts is held to such a high standard. You expect martial artists to be more in control of their emotions, more in touch with themselves, and more honorable. What Miguel did was not illegal, and I would never argue that it was. What Miguel did was dishonorable, and that way. My sons were wrestlers, so I come to it, with more than a decade of experience of wrestling tournaments. If your opponent is injured, you don't keep pounding on that injury. You stay away from it. because if you keep pounding on the injury, then basically it boils down to you're an asshole. You couldn't beat them on your own merits. You could only beat them because they had a fluke injury that you could take advantage of. And it doesn't prove anything about you. You may win, but you're going to come out of it looking like a dick. And that's what Miguel did.
So he won, he won by the rules, but it's kind of annoying. Like, is that?
Well, no, not annoying. It's when Daniel was arguing with Ron about letting Cobra Kai back in, he said that they would be disgracing the entire sport if they did it. So Miguel won, but Johnny.
Brihana, are you there? Brihana? I may have lost Brihana. No. No. Brihana's still here. Okay, I think I lost Brihana. Let me see if I can get her back real quick. Brihana. So as we're talking about, okay, yeah, her computer's crashed. Sorry guys, that's what happened. We'll try to move on when she gets back on. So the point anyway about the tournament. I mean, it's legal, so you say, well, sure you won, but it's unhonorable. Like it's it's a point-based sparring match. I don't really know what honor has to do with it. You fight, you win, you fight, you lose, however it goes. Did we lose? Okay. So that's where we're at on the fighting. So we're gonna keep going as soon as I get Brihana back. Any second now. How do you guys think it's going? Hello, Juan Douglas. Hello, Natalie Shannon. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Honor is a fool's prize. Fire Nation. Klingon triggered. It's a fun topic, but Daniel has nothing to do with Miguel's injury. Well, that's certainly what Brihana thinks. How does watch party knowledge, Nibara? Here's something about that I don't talk about it too much, and I've avoided it because the thing is, if you've ever been in a sparring match, certainly back when I did it, when Robby, something we were always taught is when your opponent is down and getting up or something, you actually should never offer your hand or never try to help your opponent up. In fact, it could even be against the rules. Actually stretching out your hand. So as the way I did it, and I was taught, the one actually breaking the rules there was Robby. You're not actually supposed to help the other person up. The show's kind of glossing over that. I don't even think they were aware of rules like that. The reason rules like that exist, by the way, is just for safety and liability. You don't want to try to help someone up, maybe who shouldn't get up if they have a certain injury or something. It would actually be the responsibility of the referee, whoever's the head referee, to evaluate the situation of the fighter who is down trying to get up. Usually what you do is if your opponent is down like that, you go back to your spot, your corner, whatever, you turn around and kneel, whatever. You've even seen that in like the Karate Kid. Johnny went back and kneeled when Daniel went over to Mr. Miyagi, or vice versa. When Kreese said, no mercy, sweep the leg, Daniel turned around and kneeled because Johnny was injured. That's the rules. You don't actually help the other person up. So, and I've just tried not to bring that up too much, just because I don't want to get into like the rules like that. But in the truth of the reality is the one breaking the rules was actually Robby. Certainly the way I ever did sparring. Come on, Brihana, get back in. So I don't focus on that particular too much. The sort of the fact that Robby offered his hand. I mean, in the end, it is there, and Miguel yanked it, which is crummy and bad, yes, and hurt him. I also don't think that was ultimately the deciding factor. Anyway, and there's I'm going to bring up one more point. The word pregnant should get you banned. Let's see if it happens. But anyway, I don't talk about that. Oh crap. Now I just lost my train of thought. About that. Oh, Peter, Nessica, I like that video you were part of that blew up on Twitter. Absolutely, guys. I know the Cobra Kai Companion YouTube channel put up that video, Cobra Kai Pod on Twitter. So what was it, like 38,000 views? It was a cool video with a lot of content creators. Check it out. And something a point I would bring up to rejoining Zoom right now. Okay. A point I would bring up about the fight is, the problem is if you're like, and I made a video on No Mercy. If you go to my channel, you can see it. If someone has an injury, what are you supposed to do? Just not attack half their body? In the end, people could fake injuries so as to what? Well, now I can't attack this guy's half of the body because why? I mean, while he's injured, I want to be honorable. And then a person who has even less honor than you could start faking an injury, and then so as to gain an advantage. Haha, you won't attack me here. That's the problem with like trying not to attack someone's injury. It doesn't make sense. It can ultimately lead you to be at a disadvantage to someone who has even less honor than you do. So, you can't judge it based on whatever your thinking of honor is. Are you back, Brihana? Brihana?
Oh my God, that was annoying.
Yeah, it was, but I think you're back.
I am. Until this last Windows update, I had not seen a blue screen of death since Windows 98, and now I get them every 2 or 3 days. It's annoying. I was checking out the chat though, and there were people in there saying you were winning, and I'm curious how, since we haven't gotten to the meat of the actual debate yet.
Did you hear what I said?
The groundwork.
I was a little bit talking, about. I briefly addressed the whole Robby helping Miguel up. I don't know if did you hear?
Nope, I didn't hear any of that. It blue screen. It blue screened me right after I said that's what Miguel did.
Okay.
Literally, as soon as the word "did" crossed my lips, the whole thing died. So
I don't talk about that part where Robby helps him up a whole lot, just because of one of the reasons, because it feels like, I don't like to get into it. It feels like it was written by somebody, who's never been in a sparring match, because as I explained, when I did it, we were always taught, you never do that. You never help your opponent up. In fact, it's specifically against the rules. So actually in real life, the one breaking the rules there is Robby. If your opponent is down and not getting up right away or something, you would go to your spot and turn around and kneel or something like that. It would be the responsibility of the head referee. So you don't help your opponent up. I don't go into that because of that reason. I don't like to just sort of be that kind of person. But it's also something I don't really bring up a whole lot because of that.
Yeah, I can see that in wrestling. If it's something that can be identified as they're down for an injury, then yes, the opponent goes to his line and stands there or goes and talks to his coach or whatever. But if it's just he's winded or he got a zinger, something like that, wrestlers help each other off the mat all the time. So to me, that was, but I don't have that exposure with karate tournaments. Like I said, my sports viewing experience comes from wrestling, and wrestlers help each other up all the time.
Yeah, at least when I did it, we were specifically told not to. Let the referee, if he's down or he's not getting up, it is the job of the referee, not yours. Yeah, I can see that. That's on Hito, really. Ultimately, we'll blame him. And I made it.
Well, this is also Karate Kid universe,
right? We'll see. Remember,
who knows what their actual rules are?
when Johnny got hurt in the first movie, and went to Kreese, who said sweep the leg. Remember, Daniel turned around and kneeled, right? That's what you do when your other opponent's injured. So, well,
that's what Pat told him to do. I really don't think Daniel knelt on a dislocated kneecap.
Well,
but
good point.
I've always kind of wanted to ask Ralph, what he actually did when Pat told Daniel to kneel, because there's no way.
Yeah. Anyway, and then I had made a quick point that, if somebody has an injury, in referring to the last point of that tournament, if you want to be honorable and not attack that injury, well, then 40%, 50% of their body you can't hit. And I said, if somebody faked an injury, someone had even less honor than you, and then you're trying not to hit their injury, but as it turns out, they're faking it, you would be at an even bigger disadvantage then. So that's part of the problem with trying not to attack someone's injury, is if you would even be at a disadvantage to someone with even less honor than you do. So that's why I think you can't make your judgments based on honor.
Well, there's a difference between, not attacking the injury on purpose and doing it incidentally. Miguel targeted Robby's shoulder and pounded on it, just like Johnny targeted Daniel's knee and pounded on it. He, punched it, elbowed it, kicked it, yanked on it, pulled it back out of socket again. That is intentionally targeting the injury. Now, if they were in a clash and he incidentally hit Robby in the shoulder, that would be perfectly fine. It was that he targeted it on purpose. And that's what Daniel saw.
Well, I don't, we got to move on.
You're supposed to rise above,
right?
And
Miguel I had made this and I addressed it in my video, even in the way they're standing there. That was the only part in front of him. It would be ridiculous to try not to hit that part. But we'll move on this point just to get going on. So
yeah, we need to get to season 2.
right, which is next, right? So Daniel, you fought with honor, he didn't, and then at the first episode, he tells them about Cobra Kai. They're not the enemy; they've just been taught the wrong way, right? So
yes,
but that's something that Robby would then internalize. These Cobra Kai people have the wrong way, even if Daniel is trying to be positive about Miyagi-Do, we're going to show them a different way. But at the same time, he's setting up the contrast. The Cobra Kai people, and he doesn't make any distinctions, have been taught the wrong way.
Yes. And Robby, for the rest of the season from that moment on, became Daniel's biggest cheerleader. in that and was the most supportive. He had his issues with Chris when Chris first showed up because of what Chris had done to Dimitri. Mm-hmm. But in everything else, and once he calmed down over that, he's the one telling Sam, this is outreach. He's showing them the way it should be done. Robby was the absolutely biggest advocate for they are not our enemy. They are and can be our friends. We just need to show them that. And it mirrors a lot of the relationship between Johnny and Daniel. Everything in this show mirrors the relationship between Johnny and Daniel.
Oh,
they can be friends. They should be friends. They just need to figure it out. And Robby was the one that was kind of at the end of the season was pushing them toward that because the kids can see it. Mm-hmm. Robby sees that reconciliation is possible.
It is possible, but not at the current moment because currently the Cobra Kais have been taught the wrong way.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think that you would argue that Kreese's karate is the right way in any way, shape, or form, because everything about Kreese's karate is dishonorable.
Yeah.
Johnny's definitely. Cobra Kai, completely different.
Yeah, I mean, there's distinctions. We'll see. That may be another debate. Another thing about Daniel talking about Cobra Kai then in 206, when he talked about his own experience in Cobra Kai, to the extent he remembers accurately or not, he tells them, it turned me into an angry, violent kid. Would Robby then think the current Cobra Kais are angry, violent kids?
I think he would come at it, especially the character development that we got from Robby this season up until the fight at the end. He encouraged Sam to go talk to Aisha and get her friend back. Mm-hmm. He wants to see the reconciliation. If he sees these kids that are being turned angry and violent, his first instinct is going to be, then I have to save them.
And while in that particular case, worst case scenario, a fight breaks out, we could record it. At least
that
on
was
some
a joke.
level.
That was a joke that bit him in the ass about 45 minutes later, but that was a joke. Yes.
I mean, well, there you go. I mean, but anyway, that was also before, Daniel explained how Cobra Kai can make you an angry, violent kid. Daniel also goes on to say he was lucky Mr. Miyagi took him back. I take that, Miyagi, he's saying Miyagi is what saved him from being an angry, violent kid.
Yes. Daniel, anyone that has seen The Karate Kid Part 3 knows that what Daniel told those kids is completely wrong. Johnny remembers the first 3 movies with himself as the good guy, and Daniel's the aggressor. Mm-hmm. Daniel apparently remembers the first 3 movies with himself as the bad guy. He was a 16-year-old kid who was brainwashed by 2 special forces officers. And he's chalking it up to, I threw a temper tantrum. He was talking about a fight with Mr. Miyagi that never happened. There was no big fight. There was, I want to do this. I don't want you to. Okay, I'll burn the paper. There was days and days and days of Mike Barnes threatening to kill him if he didn't sign the paper, and Daniel refusing. But so his perspective on it is completely different.
Right. Even if Daniel is let's say misremembering, ultimately that's what he's telling them, and that's what they're going to get out of it.
Yes.
Miyagi is taking him back is what saved him. And then Daniel goes on to tell the Miyagi-Dos, it doesn't matter what you were before you came into this dojo. All that matters is that we are all Miyagi-Do. Daniel is telling them, like Miyagi saved him, now that they're in Miyagi-Do, they are saved. Right?
No. He's telling them that, he's trying to save them. He's not telling them that he's done it. Daniel doesn't see himself as a savior. He had as quite possibly, if you examine subtext, things that he says, facial expressions, Daniel has the worst self-esteem of anyone on the show. Everything is his fault. Everything that happens, he blames himself, whether he did it or not. That started when he was a kid. It's a personality trait that has not gone away. So he doesn't see himself as anyone capable of saving these kids. He just wants to try because he knows what happened to him and he doesn't want it to happen again.
And he wants to, I guess, maybe take up the mantle of Mr. Miyagi. Maybe I can get my picture on this wall, right?
He does think, I mean, he does hope that one day he'll earn a spot on the wall with the ancestors. But at the moment, he doesn't think he's even worthy of looking at Mr. Miyagi. So,
but in this moment, he's telling them at least there's a chance they can come together. He's doing this to get them to come together, you know, and they can do this now that they're in Miyagi-Do. All that matters is that we're all Miyagi-Do. You've left Cobra Kai and now you're
all
Miyagi-Do.
that matters is that we are all living the philosophy of peace and balance and focus. That's what he means when he says we are all Miyagi-Do. This is what we are all striving for.
Because
it doesn't matter where you
Cobra
came from.
Kai
It doesn't matter how you got here.
And Cobra Kai will make you an angry, violent kid, but now we're not an angry, violent kid. The other ones still in Cobra Kai are angry, violent kids, but now we're all Miyagi-Do. We're trying to live this new philosophy. But
he never said that.
Of course he didn't. I know he didn't. But
no. Yeah, he never said that. He never implied that. He said that it made him an angry, violent kid. He said it's, you know, it preaches power. It preaches strength. He talked about it being
Cobra
basically
Kai will make you strong. It'll
addictive.
Make you,
it's like a drug.
So the kids in Cobra Kai, it's like a drug. So, as you just said.
But he never mentioned them. He was talking specifically about himself. He never, I don't think Miguel
Cobra Kai
even
sells
entered his
power.
mind.
I mean,
Daniel's issues with Cobra Kai are with John Kreese, Terry Silver, Mike Barnes. They're not even really with Johnny anymore. But to him, Cobra Kai is this abstract thing that he has to save people from.
So absolutely. So what Daniel is thinking, it may not necessarily be what the students are interpreting. Daniel's gone through all this, Kreese, Silver, all that stuff. You know, Cobra Kai sells power. It made me an angry, violent kid. But the kids sitting there thinking about how they left Cobra Kai, and Robby specifically, you know, Miguel didn't fight with honor. Miguel, angry, violent kid. Maybe Daniel is then confirming Robby's attitude of Miguel towards Miguel there. Now, the topic is how Robby is going to be interpreting this specifically towards Miguel.
If that was true, there would have been an actual confrontation the night Miguel knocked on the door. And there wasn't. There was a civil conversation. If he saw Miguel as an unsavable enemy that he must defend himself from at all times, he would not have spoken to him. He'd have slammed the door in his face or he'd have punched him. He did neither.
Well, I would just argue, you know, Robby was in a certain spot there, having just ever since, you know, Sam showed up in his room. But, you know, so maybe he was just quite in a little bit of a different mood there. Even then, he was very skeptical when, you know, Miguel showed up, and he did kind of just more or less bluntly close the door in his face, didn't he? So while he didn't punch him or anything like that, I mean, I think his current mood from the events of the evening, however those transpired, maybe was softening him a little bit.
I mean, he was definitely surprised that Miguel was there. Mm-hmm. He wasn't comfortable. Miguel is not his favorite person. And
I don't think Miguel expected Robby to open the door either, you know, so.
No, he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
No, he thought Sam was. So they were both caught off guard. I was actually very, very impressed with the way they dealt with each other in that situation, that they didn't confront each other, because the last time they saw each other did not end well. Yeah, the last time they saw each other outside the tournament, they almost got into a knockdown, drag out fight. The only thing that stopped it was that Miguel punched, Sam instead of Robby. So I was very impressed with how they both dealt with it. And I think Daniel sees Cobra Kai as separate from the people in it, because he can relate to Johnny. He can talk to Johnny, but he still hates Cobra Kai. He can hang out and dance and have fun and drink and eat tacos with Johnny for hours.
Well, Daniel also said,
and he can joke about the car.
I mean, Cobra Kai will never change. So, I mean, it doesn't seem
that came from Robby, and Daniel said he was wrong.
No. I'm talking about that.
Once a Cobra Kai, always a Cobra Kai.
With Lucille at the backyard barbecue. Cobra Kai.
Well, you're all the way back to season 1.
Well,
I mean,
who know.
Daniel was in season 1 is very little bearing on who he is now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because we've seen him change and we've seen him grow.
Right. So, see, we get off a tangent, and I forget where we were. we were talking about.
Well, we were laying the groundwork.
Right.
You were trying to prove that Daniel unintentionally poisoned Robby against Miguel, and he didn't. So,
I mean, it's just because you think that it seems like you're saying, obviously Daniel has a lot of backstory with Cobra Kai that is different from Robby's backstory with Miguel. So as Daniel's talking about Cobra Kai, Robby is going to interpret this and funnel it through the people he knows, which is most specifically Miguel. I don't see how the fact that Robby didn't punch Miguel when he opened the door as strong evidence that Robby isn't taking that thinking, because Robby had quite a night, plus he was still distrustful of Miguel anyway. So I see them more as Robby taking Daniel's thinking that they're angry, violent kids, right? He's someone without honor.
No, if anything, what Robby is taking from Daniel is that they can be taught another way. They can be saved. That's what Daniel was preaching to these kids all season long.
Yeah, okay,
Cobra
they
Kai
can
is
be,
not our enemy.
But they can be, and certainly the ones sitting in Miyagi-Do can be, but they're not sitting in Miyagi-Do. So even if they can be, they're not. So they've chosen not to be taught it another way. Right?
That doesn't make any sense. Say that again.
They can be taught another way, which is fine. They're sitting in Miyagi-Do, but the ones not sitting in Miyagi-Do, the ones still in Cobra Kai, are choosing not to be taught another way. So they're staying an angry, violent kid. Cobra Kai sells power. It's addictive. So they want that power that Cobra Kai is selling them. And they're even making a choice because Daniel offered them to come to Miyagi-Do, and then they chose to stay in Cobra Kai.
Okay. Are you honestly going to tell me that Eli is not the person you just described? You going to tell me that Raymond and Tori are not the person you just described?
I'm not saying it's
not
wrong.
coloring their perception if that's who they actually are.
I'm specifically talking about what Robby thinks of Miguel. Daniel could be correct on Hawk and Stingray and Allie's daughter. Daniel
and
could
Tori and Red and Mitch and all of it. Bert. We've seen Bert go from this sweet, wonderful little boy to this foul-mouthed little wannabe badass. I mean, it's the character development that was going on with Miguel.
Brihana, you've talked about every character except
was
Miguel.
Very subtle. Miguel's character development was very subtle, and it did not happen anywhere where Robby could see it. But the person you just described is who Miguel was the last time Robby had an actual interaction with him, which was on the mat at the All Valley tournament. there's no way for him to know that Miguel has now taken the lessons of mercy that Johnny has given him and has started internalizing it, because Robby could not possibly be there to see that. Daniel has less idea than Robby does, because Daniel hasn't ever spoken to Miguel, not a single word.
Okay,
right?
So Daniel is reinforcing Robby's thinking on Miguel, because the actions I described.
Not what I said.
The actions I described was the last time Robby saw Miguel. So the actions Daniel's talking about is when Robby saw Miguel the last time, which is essentially reinforcing it then, because he saw this, and now then Daniel's teaching Cobra Kai will make him an angry, violent kid. Cobra Kai sells power. You can choose to go a different way. Some people, including Miguel, chose not to go that way, chose to stay with Cobra Kai.
The only person that we saw grow out of what Daniel believes Cobra Kai is, what Robby believes Cobra Kai is, the only people that we saw grow out of that were Johnny and Miguel. But you cannot blame either Robby or Daniel for assuming that Miguel is still the person he was when everyone he's surrounded by is that person. Hawk has completely squashed Eli's existence because he likes the power. Stingray, I can't believe I just said that word, Raymond, will walk down a high school hallway beating the crap out of children because he craves the power.
I mean, he was
and in that fight,
guard.
yeah, he wanted to beat on children. Aisha just sometimes is the voice of reason, but at the same time, when the Miyagi-Do student shoulder checked her, what'd she do? You want some of this? And she slammed his face into a locker. It's in that fight, every single Cobra Kai student, including Miguel, who started the damn thing, was exactly what you just described. It's all about the power. It's all about the strength. Miguel started the fight. So there's zero reason for anyone who didn't watch that character development to assume that inside Miguel is this kid who's actually internalized mercy, because he showed none until the very end, when he whispered, "I'm sorry," and let go of Robby's arm. And there was also zero way for Robby to realize that he was no longer in danger, because he had been defending himself from Miguel for 15, 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, you said Miguel started the fight. I mean, that really started with Tori, and then Robby tried to...
Robby had broken them up.
Mm-hmm.
Robby had broken them up and was actually in the middle of a sentence saying, "We can work this out." He had them separated. The girls were no longer going at it. When it comes to the actual action that started the riot, was Miguel tackling Robby. Because as soon as he did that, Hawk yelled, "Yeah," and it was on. If Miguel had waited 30 seconds and let Robby finish talking, that riot doesn't happen.
Now, is that what you always think? Have always thought on that about
Yes,
Miguel?
from the first time I saw it.
That, okay. Because let me look at here something. I found something you said, and I'm going to put it on the screen. This is your words. In Miguel's defense for what comes after, these kids have the worst timing on the face of the planet. 10 seconds earlier, Miguel runs just a little bit faster and is there to see Robby pulling Tori off Sam, so he knows something already transpired. There's so much going on in that hallway. By the time Miguel gets there, I can actually give him the benefit of the doubt that all he saw was Robby with his hand on Tori and kicking, goon number 2 behind Hawk's shoulder, and he doesn't hear Robby trying to say, everybody calm down. I'm sure we can figure this out, that is what Robby is saying as all hell breaks loose. So you were giving Miguel the benefit of the doubt.
I'm giving Miguel the benefit of the doubt that he did not hear what Robby said because he reacted too quickly. That's absolutely exactly what I just said. He reacted too quickly. If he waits 30 seconds, the riot doesn't happen. But he didn't wait. I give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't hear what Robby was saying, but that doesn't excuse him from tackling Robby and starting a riot.
Well, I've always seen it as, Miguel saw Robby going against Tori, and that's why he jumped in. And it is definitely a misinterpretation, but that's, that's ultimately what Miguel saw. So in the end, I don't blame Miguel for thinking Robby was going after Tori there. Right?
It was a matter of timing.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I said in what you put up there on the screen. It's exactly what I said right now. If Miguel waits 30 seconds after he comes around that corner, the fight never happens. Because if he actually listens to what Robby's saying, he steps over, he takes control of Tori, Robby takes Sam, they separate them, and they defuse the entire situation.
But why would he wait 30 seconds if he thinks Robby's going after Tori? In the end,
I don't know. Why would Robby wait 30 seconds after he didn't hear Miguel say, "I'm sorry," before getting up and defending himself? If you can excuse Miguel for starting a riot because he didn't hear what Robby said, then you can absolutely 100%, and you have to, because you have to apply the rules equally, right? If you forgive Miguel for starting the riot, you have to forgive Robby for kicking him over the rail, because it's the exact same thing, because he didn't hear what Miguel said.
He didn't hear, well, in this case, Miguel was right next to him. Whether he heard or not over the cheering kids, but Miguel also let go of the arm lock. So he would know he got let go.
Which, from Robby's perspective, he didn't see his face. From Robby's perspective, that means that Miguel is going in for a different hold and he has to get up and defend himself. Okay. But we're just discussing Robby and Miguel here.
Yeah, let's go to
and whether or not, where does Daniel play into this? Because Daniel wasn't there.
There you go. I've always thought when Miguel lets him go, okay, so whether Robby hears him or not, Robby just doesn't automatically kick or something. He almost screams. Like you see a surge of rage, right?
Rage or fear. It can be read either way.
Fear? I don't know. I don't see it as fear. I see it more as rage. And he's moving off his rage towards Miguel. So let's see. Okay. Because
Zed, I'm not stupid. Sorry.
So we'll step back in the fight a little bit, where we do get a little bit, because Robby does shout at Miguel. That's for taking advantage of Sam, because that's ultimately what Robby thinks happened.
Yes. That Miguel took advantage of Sam while she was drunk.
Mm-hmm. And that's something a person without honor would do, right?
Mm-hmm.
An angry, violent kid would just totally take advantage of a drunk girl.
Well, no, not necessarily an angry, violent kid, but definitely a dishonorable one. Yeah, I mean, they're teenagers. Robby's first thought is that Miguel initiated the kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Tori's first thought is that Sam did. And, we watched it happen. It was a mutual decision. They moved toward each other at the exact same time.
Right.
They both made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Sam's fault. It's not Miguel's fault. They have feelings for each other. They never should have broken up. They're still in love. And this is what happened.
But, but Robby has a unique rage. So I would say, what it's getting to. The source of his rage kick. See, I mean, I don't think of it as fear, but I think that the source of his rage kick was essentially confirmation bias of everything Daniel had been telling him. Even though Daniel was trying to teach about the Miyagi-Do way, there's always the contrast. You can choose this way, or you can stay with Cobra Kai. Miguel staying with Cobra Kai all this time was being reinforced. Everything Robby ever thought about Miguel was reinforced by Daniel, channeled through Daniel, all the way up to the moment where he thinks Miguel took advantage of Sam, which confirms everything he always thought. He even said earlier, you can't cheat your way out of this one. I don't think Daniel or Miguel ever cheated in the tournament. Miguel didn't necessarily win because cheating. Maybe it's not honorable, but it's not cheating. But it's Robby's viewpoint, and it was something reinforced through season 2 by Daniel. That Daniel didn't mention
Miguel's behavior at the All Valley at all after episode 1, and
right.
He mentioned it then to Amanda, not to Robby. Robby has his own opinion of Miguel that he formed completely independent of Daniel, because he's had interactions with Miguel that Daniel doesn't, like you brought up earlier. Daniel may not know about the fight at the canyon. Mm-hmm. He may not know that, they got into it before they faced off at the tournament.
But we can't say it's completely independent. I mean, he's training. Nothing is like completely, you draw a line and it's like they don't interact. He's a person. He's going back and forth. He's seeing things from Miguel. He's hearing lessons from Daniel. So there's the cross here.
Probably the only voice that Robby was not hearing in his head during that fight was Daniel's. Robby was in that fight completely 100% as Robby. Miguel wasn't making cracks about Daniel. He was making cracks about Sam, and he was making cracks about Johnny. So if you want to talk about who was on whose mind, whose name kept coming up during this fight, was Johnny, not Daniel. Yeah, these two are fighting from a sibling rivalry point of view. Robby is the misbegotten son, and Miguel is the prodigal.
Well, I mean...
They're fighting over Johnny and Sam. Daniel has nothing to do with it.
But that's not a sibling fighting then, Robby and Sam were... I mean, he's defending...
No, Robby and Miguel at this point are in spirit, whether they want to be or not. They are brothers. Miguel is the son that Miguel is the son that Johnny has chosen. Robby is the son that Johnny threw away.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I see the fighting as Miguel saw Robby with pinned Tori against the locker, right? While kicking another.
That's what started it, yes.
Yes. So Miguel is fighting because he thought Robby was going after Tori. It's instinctive. Obviously, we know he was wrong, but that was an instinctive move. I have always thought he was ultimately trying to defend Tori from that, even though he himself was trying to get the two to break up, and that's a whole nother thing, obviously. But Robby was fighting back because he thought Miguel had taken advantage of Sam. And he thought Miguel was the sort of guy who
they got up onto the.
I mean,
when they got up onto the ledge, yes.
The thought that maybe Sam was into it or whatever, that obviously never entered Robby's head. And, I mean, at some point, obviously Miguel shouts, "I would never," but, it's definitely something Robby never even considered, that, that was a mutual kiss. I mean, I think Robby's rage at Miguel is what carried him through the end. And I think, Daniel had reinforced that rage throughout indirectly, because whenever he talks about Cobra Kai and he contrasts it with Miyagi-Do, these Cobra Kai people are without honor. They're violent. They seek power, whatever, it ultimately creates an impression, an attitude that Robby exhibited and ultimately lost control of himself when Miguel let him go. He felt, Miguel let him go. He goes, he scrunches his face, screams, and just unleashes on poor Miguel, who's now in the hospital.
Daniel did not do anything to reinforce specific attitudes towards specific people. And in fact, he actually did the opposite, especially when it comes to Johnny.
I mean,
when he talks about Cobra Kai, he's talking about the abstract concept of the dojo, the teachings, the philosophy. But when he's talking about the individual people, he's telling Robby, your father is not a monster. Your father is a good man. I'll step away and let you deal with him because he's your father. I'm not. That's what Daniel is teaching Robby about the difference between the people in Cobra Kai and Cobra Kai itself.
Right. But surely, sometimes lesson specifically taught isn't always the same as lesson learned by the student, right? I think Daniel, I agree actually with you with Daniel's intentions, his thoughts, why he's saying what he's saying, why he's, talking about Cobra Kai in the abstract, the ideal, and how it treats people. But the lesson absorbed by the person, they're going to internalize that. They're going to put faces to that. The face Robby knows the most is ultimately, Miguel. So he's putting a face to it, even though that's not Daniel's direct intention.
Except he didn't do any of that.
I think he did because Miguel, he had a surge of rage. He thought Miguel was taking advantage of Sam, and he couldn't control that. He wanted to bring justice to Miguel for taking advantage
Robby
of
and
Sam.
Miguel's fight in the school. When it started, Miguel was the aggressor. Robby was defending himself. Was he thinking, "Oh, this kid is an angry, violent kid"?
Robby
was thinking this guy
up Tori and Sam
is going to kick my ass, and I got to stop him. The original fight, the one that they had in the Oner when they're fighting down the hallway, neither one of them knew why they were fighting. They just were.
Yeah.
They didn't start expressing the actual motivations of their rage until they got out in the lobby. And then it was Johnny. Do you like that move? I learned it from your dad. I mean, that's basically getting in Robby's face and saying, Dad likes you more. Dad likes me more than he likes you.
That's Miguel's line. Robby's is, you can't cheat your way out of this one. That's a specific line that assumes you cheated your way out of it previously. Now, why would he think that?
Because that's the opinion that he formed standing on the mat himself when Miguel exploited his injury.
You don't think Daniel driving away? Daniel said to Amanda in 201, I don't want, Sam and Anthony going to school with a bunch of bullies who think you can cheat and get away with it, right? He specifically said cheat.
It's entirely possible for two people to form the same opinion for the same reason, independently of each other. It's amazing.
Well, we did establish at the very beginning, dialogue said to one character, we can assume perhaps could have been also said to other characters in scenes we never saw because we don't see everything. So you agreed to that in the beginning, remember?
Yes.
So Daniel definitely thinks Miguel is a cheater. Cobra Kai, he said so to Amanda. So is it a stretch to see that maybe Robby also picked up on that from Daniel?
Robby had already decided
to say
that
the
Miguel
word
cheated
cheating
before Daniel said anything.
How do we know Robby decided? The first person who said cheating, I believe, was Daniel.
But he didn't say it to Robby.
Right, but
Robby formed his opinion of Miguel's behavior standing on the mat when his dislocated shoulder became a target. In his mind, he knew immediately that was cheating. That's why he offered his father the half-ass, "It's okay, Dad," and walked away. Because as far as he knew, his father had just coached someone else to injure him. Now, he's not going to walk away from that mat with a high opinion of either of them.
I don't see any evidence in the show that Robby formed that opinion right there. First off,
I don't see any evidence in the show that Robby didn't form the opinion that Miguel was cheating. If you're going to interpret subtext, you have to be, you can enforce it or not.
The first utterance is by Daniel in 201 there, to Amanda.
To Amanda.
Right. But if he's saying it to Amanda somewhere along the way, he may have also said that to Robby. And he already told Robby, "You fought with honor." He didn't.
Yes. Daniel agreed with Robby.
He didn't give him the opinion that he cheated. Robby. I mean, it wasn't
that Miguel's actions were dishonorable, but maybe Robby couldn't put it into words, but he already knew that. That's why he walked away from Johnny.
But
he could not face his father in that moment.
Mm-hmm. So I just see the cheating idea, the first utterances I've seen of it always come from Daniel. It came from him in the car over to the dojo, Mr. Miyagi's house. It came in 201 when he said it to Amanda. I mean, if you want to just interpret it, but Robby was thinking that before Daniel saw it. I mean, I think you're doing that, but you're doing that in defense of Daniel. I don't see the evidence in the show.
No, I'm actually doing that in defense of Robby, because what you're doing is stripping him of all agency as a character. You're saying that Robby is not capable of coming to his own conclusions about these actions, despite what he said to Johnny in the hardware store, despite what he said to Daniel in the car, despite the fact that he couldn't face his father because he thought that his father had just coached someone to hurt him. Robby is a 16-year-old kid. He is entirely capable of forming his own opinions. The fact that you think he can't and he has to get everything he thinks and feels from Daniel is stripping Robby from everything that makes him who he is. And that's not fair to Robby.
I don't think he has to. I just think as the role of sensei, Daniel is forming his, shaping his opinion, providing the leadership, the mentorship.
But Robby is also entirely capable of looking at Miguel's actions and forming his own conclusion. Robby was the injured party there. And if you go back to the fight that we're actually debating, Daniel had zero to do with it. His name was never brought up. His teachings were never brought up. Not a single damn thing between Miguel and Robby. Now, Sam was thinking about her father a whole lot. Robby was not. He was thinking about Johnny. He was thinking about Sam. And he was thinking about the fact that Miguel had attacked him and he needed to defend himself and nothing else.
I mean, well, in fairness, I think everyone in the fight is mostly focused on the fight. I mean,
right. I'm gonna
right, yeah.
if I don't fight back.
Right. I mean,
I'm going to get seriously hurt again.
I'm actually curious why you thought Sam was thinking about her father in the moment. I'm not sure where that came from, but that's obviously another topic. But I think ultimately the attitudes Robby had, Daniel wasn't mentioned, but he imparted this attitude of the Cobra Kai bullies cheat and get away with it. You fought with honor. He didn't. When I was in Cobra Kai, it made me an angry, violent kid. But I was saved because I was lucky Mr. Miyagi took me back. It doesn't matter who you were. It doesn't matter if you were in Cobra Kai. All that matters is your Miyagi-Do. Well, the contrast is that if you're not Miyagi-Do, then you're still Cobra Kai. So you can look at your Miyagi-Dos and maybe learn to get along with them. But those Cobra Kais, they didn't come along. They didn't come join Miyagi-Do.
No. No, what Daniel is saying, and I said this a while ago, what Daniel is saying when he's saying that to the kids is you have all made the choice to embrace this philosophy. He's not saying a single word or implying anything about Cobra Kai. He's saying what unites us is this philosophy. We are all here because we want to learn this.
I got you. I completely agree with you. You ever say something on the internet? Certainly I get this. And then people come back with some interpretation response and you think, what the hell are you talking about? That's not what I was saying at all. Like sometimes interpretation or how people receive the message can differ than the intention behind it when you were giving the message. I mean, wouldn't that same thing be possible with Daniel sitting there talking about Cobra Kai? Can we assume, especially someone like Robby, who has specific history with a specific Cobra Kai, Miguel, may be interpreting Daniel's message a little bit differently than maybe Daniel had intended it to be?
In 201, absolutely. Robby misinterprets everything Daniel says in 201, and you can see it on Daniel's face when he realizes it's happening. That's why after they get back from the hardware store and he's meditating, he gives him the, no, what we were thinking, what you were thinking was wrong. What I was thinking was wrong. We're not going to defeat them. We're not going to fight them. We don't have an enemy. So what he did there was correct the wrong thinking that he knew that Robby was starting to slide into. As far as Robby misinterpreting everything Daniel taught him for the rest of the season, not even just subtext, but actual text. Robby is the one Miyagi-Do student who did not misinterpret what Daniel was saying. And I established that earlier as well. Robby was the biggest cheerleader for the, we can reach them. They're just like us. They can be saved. We can save them. Robby did not misinterpret a single thing.
But not all of them chose to be saved, right? The ones who didn't.
But he's not concerned with them. He's not concerned with them.
But
he's
concerned
concerned with
the
ones
that
willingly came over.
The ones that can be saved contrast the ones that stayed, i.e. Miguel, angry, violent kid, take advantage of Sam. You can't cheat your way out of this one.
He would have those issues with Miguel if Miguel was Locust Valley, if Miguel was All-Star, if Miguel was Topanga, if Miguel was a wrestler or a football player or a nerd standing on a street corner who's not involved in any sport at all. His issues with Miguel exist possibly because of the karate connection, but you take that out, you take it away from both of them and leave every other action the same, and they have the same feelings toward each other. It has nothing to do with Cobra Kai Miyagi-Do. What's going on between Robby and Miguel is personal, and Daniel has nothing to do with it.
You know, it's funny because what you just described is actually more how I would describe Sam and Tori. I mean, obviously not to get off topic. I've often actually thought this through. I do think weirdly Sam and Tori would have happened had there been no karate dojos. Their storyline would have been almost the same. And Robby and Miguel
the same way, because Robby still would have been the kid that showed up at the party with Miguel's girlfriend. So it happens either way. The kids' issues are personal. Johnny and Daniel go back to 1984. Their issue with the two of them is personal.
See, I think
the issues with the dojo are overarching beyond that, but their issues are with each other.
I've always, and it's something I've thought, out of all these little rivalries we have going on here, Johnny, Daniel, Sam, Tori, we'll throw in Hawk and Dimitri, Miguel and Robby. I always thought the least personal is actually Miguel and Robby. I think they're the least personal of all of them, which specifically, by the way, I think they will be friends in some capacity in season 3. That's just moving on. That's my own little prediction.
I think they're going to have to because I have this feeling that they actually are going to end up brothers.
Right.
So they're going to have to resolve this. Dad likes me more than you. They've got serious hurdles that they're going to have to overcome.
Right.
I think they can do it. But again, it's going to be the two of them working through that. Daniel will be able to support it, but Johnny is going to have to instigate it, because the big obstacle between those boys, hands down, from the moment they saw each other, is Johnny.
Hold on,
not
I
Daniel.
have to interrupt you, Brihana. Peter says Bert versus Nathaniel isn't personal. I don't know, Peter. You don't know that. I think Bert and Daniel, or Nate and Bert are the most personal. You never know. They seem to...
I think because they were friends. I mean, that's where the break came between the dojos in season 2, right?
Yeah.
Chris and Mitch are rivals because they were friends, and Chris walked out. Nate and Bert were friends, and Nate walked out. There's going to be the rivalry there between Big Red and Little Red. Oh my God, you're my brother. You betrayed me. You stabbed me in the back. You walked away. Every single rivalry between these dojos is personal, and it has nothing to do with the dojos themselves.
I think Robby and Miguel are the least personal. I think it is wrapped around the dojo. It's wrapped around what happened, you know, at the karate match. I mean, it's personal in the sense that, you know, Miguel saw Robby kind of moving in on his girl. Robby saw Miguel taking advantage of Sam. There's that element of that's partially misunderstanding.
Go back further. Go back further. Go back to a damaged, abandoned child watching his father hug someone else across a parking lot.
Kid, yeah. I figured.
Don't tell me that's not personal. That's one.
Is that towards Miguel
personal.
or towards
I'm not
Johnny,
good enough.
though?
I'm not good enough for my dad to love me, but he loves you. Who the hell are you? Why did you take my place? Miguel and Robby is 100% personal, and it's all over Johnny.
Fueled by Daniel. And in the end, though, the kick, the rage that came from the kick, I don't think he was kicking. I don't see it from Daniel because Johnny, or it wasn't Johnny hugging Miguel. In the end, I think his rage, his thinkings about Miguel were shaped by his sensei, Daniel LaRusso. Lord knows.
That moment, there was nothing in Robby's mind except the fight. Nothing except the fight.
While he was
if
fighting,
you're going to say
though,
that was fueled all by rage and that was fueled all by Daniel, then go back 30 seconds in that exact same fight to Miguel throwing that exact same kick with Robby in that exact same position, and not for the fact that Robby's foot moved 6 inches and his shoulders hit that rail, he's the one that flies over. Miguel literally did the exact same thing 30 seconds earlier. So if that kick is fueled by Daniel, then why are these two boys that are both so connected to Johnny throwing the exact same kick in the exact same position? And when did we ever see Daniel teach Robby that kick?
Oh, it's a side kick, I'm sure.
He did back to Miguel what Miguel had just done to him. That was all. It was a fluke. He did not mean to kick him over the rail. And no one with any sense whatsoever can say that Robby meant to kick Miguel over that rail.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think Robby intended it. I just think Robby
was doing it back to, it was just doing it back to him. That was it. Miguel did that exact same move 30 seconds earlier. I think
the show shows us this. Robby scream in a fit of rage, and I think it's the rage he feels towards Miguel, and the origin of that rage was strongly fueled by Daniel LaRusso from his teachings.
And again, you're stripping. You are completely. Yes, you are completely stripping Robby of his agency as a character.
No, well, I'm really saying Daniel is such an effective sensei. His teachings stay with his students. So Robby learns.
No, what they did, I already said, the only person that you can see using Daniel's teaching is Sam, because she's the one that keeps telling Tori, we got to stop. Would you stop? Stop fighting dirty. Stop doing this. Sam was the one that was verbally trying to stop the fight the entire time. Every other Miyagi-Do student completely forgot everything Daniel taught them.
Or they interpreted it differently. Maybe Daniel thinks he's teaching
because there is no way that that level of violence came from Daniel. And you know there's not. Miyagi-Do is a pacifist philosophy. You know that that level of violence did not come from Daniel. It couldn't.
Well, it's a self-defense philosophy. I would.
Yes. Do not strike first. Mm-hmm. Balance, focus, defend yourself, defend others. And when the fight started, that's what they were doing. But as the fight continued and the Cobra Kai got more and more violent with them, they got more and more violent back. The only person whose teachings were actually influencing the majority of that fight were John Kreese. Johnny and Daniel have so little influence over that fight that it's almost hilarious.
No, I guess we'll go back and forth for hours and hours. I think it's Cobra Kai Kids thing is, do you want to just wrap up anything else?
Yes, he's actually, he's starting right now. Did
you made your point? Any last words you want to throw in, Brihana?
I love you.
Oh, thank you.
This was awesome. I love the number of times that you went completely silent because you didn't know what to say. That always makes me happy.
Oh, we can replay when you did that as well.
I think I did it when I didn't understand what you were saying, and I believe I asked for clarification every time because you kind of wound things around a few times. But end result, I think we've both established that the root of the issues between Miguel and Robby come from Johnny and Sam. Daniel has nothing to do with it. The individual, the adult most responsible for what happened in that high school is John Kreese, and it's not possible to argue it any other way.
Definitely.
He wanted a war, and he instigated one. He told him he was going to do it.
Oh, wait, Peter's, excuse me, you love him? I'm still here.
Well, I love you too, Peter.
Definitely John Kreese, I agree. He failed as a teacher, as a sensei. Had he taught his students properly, no mercy, obviously the Cobra Kai wouldn't have gotten their butt kicked so bad had they properly employed John Kreese's teachings, as I explained in my video on No Mercy. Definitely John Kreese had
he got what he wanted.
You think he wanted them to lose? I'm just curious. No,
I think he wanted a war. I think he wanted a war, and he's got one.
I see. Yeah.
He told Daniel he wanted a war. He told Johnny he was going to send those kids into battle. There's no other way to interpret it. Yeah. That fight came from John Kreese.
See, that's the whole problem, though. It's not like
him instigating into Tori what he did to Hawk when Hawk trashed the dojo.
I think Tori did it on her own, though, per se. And that's partially to get off topic. I do think, had Tori never even joined Cobra Kai, but everything else kind of went as it did, I still think she would have shown up to beat up Sam, because I think that's Tori.
Yeah, but it would have been just Tori in that instance. It would have been just Tori. It wouldn't have turned into an all-out riot. Right.
Because that's partially why when people say, or maybe when you say John Kreese is responsible, I'm like, well, I don't think Kreese influenced Tori. And to me, it's always funny. A man confronts you here in tournament on the street, he's an enemy, show no mercy. Does Tori go to Kreese? Okay, this girl kissed my boyfriend. Does that count as confronting me? I don't, it just strikes me as funny in a way. But that's why. Yeah,
we don't know where she was for all of Sunday. We last saw her at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, and then we didn't see her again until 8:30 Monday morning. So we don't know where she was or what she was doing or who she was with Sunday at all.
Yeah, it is kind of a mystery. That, and by the way, now we're just totally off topic, but I always had the theory that Miguel tried to go see Tori that day. That's why he didn't text her a lot. You know, he texted her once. I just re-listened to your podcast. You were talking about this, is why I thought of it, because I always think Miguel tried to go see Tori. He went to her place. Maybe she wasn't home. I don't know what that means, but that also explains why, like, Miguel, you know, Robby's right over at Johnny's across the thing, why they didn't run into each other, because Miguel had left. He was trying to find Tori. So I don't know. Maybe not. That was just always a thought I had about that.
Yeah. I just think it was meant to show that he didn't care about Tori nearly as much as he did Sam. He's not as invested in his relationship with Tori as he is with Sam, because he's still in love with Sam. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's in love with Tori, but I think he likes her. I think he has feelings for her. I don't think he's in love with her. He's in love with Sam. So
I don't want to get into that topic. I mean,
right, because that's a whole nother subject.
Like, let's just cut it short. Okay, so this was fun. We had a great debate.
It was
definitely, we showed why teachings of a sensei may not always be interpreted as the way you think. Why Daniel's responsible. Now Brihana chimes in,
which you
and
never
says
proved.
I'm wrong.
So congratulations. You were so close so many times, but you never quite got there. Every time I would bring up Johnny, you've got no answer. So.
Well, I mean, Johnny's a part of it. I'm not going to claim otherwise. And I even said Johnny's partially responsible. I opened with that, you know.
But the bulk of the bulk of the responsibility rests on Kreese, and you know that as well as anyone.
Oh, yeah.
I love debate, but come on. You know it's Kreese.
You're not gonna lie. I think Kreese gets vindicated season 3.
No.
Now I say
they redeem
won't
him.
say
I'm
redeem.
done.
I'm using a different word. In my video I said redemption, but I was kind of being just coy or whatever. I would like to see. I would use the word vindicated. Maybe if there's a difference between redeemed and vindication. We'll see. What do you think of that? Do you think there could be a difference?
I don't think anybody can be vindicated for child abuse.
It's not. It's his teachings per se, not necessarily all his actions.
What he did to Johnny, what we've seen him do to Johnny, was mental and emotional abuse. What we saw him do to Daniel, 100% emotional and mental abuse, and a little physical thrown in, because he enjoyed watching this kid get his ass kicked. Yeah. Just because he never touched him doesn't mean he didn't abuse him. Mm-hmm. He abused both of them, and he's abusing these kids too.
Maybe we'll come back and
I don't think child abuse is something that can be vindicated or redeemed or forgiven.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll come back and debate Kreese sometime. We'll see. Okay, everyone in the chat, thank you. I mean, I've seen you guys. We weren't able to interact with you a whole lot, but thank you everyone for stopping in, for seeing it. Check out Brihana. Hey, Cobra Kai music. Hey, thank you for stopping in. Brihana25,
hey,
obviously. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel, also Cobra Kai Companion, podcast, a lot of interviews, a lot of good stuff on there.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and sign out. Go watch The Karate Kid with Cobra Kai Kid if you have your Netflix.
Everybody head over to the kids channel.
I don't have Netflix yet, so I can't. But
Aww.
Okay.